everyone, and welcome back to your favorite legal show every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Speaking legally, where the legal meets the cultural. I'm Dr. Stacey Grant, and our two legal experts. We have our Edward Pichado, Esquire, and Royce Russell, Esquire. So we thank you for tuning in, being part of our show every week. And, there's always a lot to talk about because the news continues to unfold. And as we get ready for today, we just invite you to invite a friend. Let them know about the show. Thank you for your comments, your play, letting us know that our legal experts continue to add value to how you understand what's happening in legalese, as we say, because it's where the legal meets the cultural. So you don't have to rely on what I call the sidewalk attorneys. You have two expert attorneys that are able to give you guidance and insight on information that you may not know. So before we get started, Señor Picharo, ¿cómo está?
Muy bien. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Welcome everyone to the show this afternoon. Thank you for joining in. I'm sure you'll find the information educational as well as fulfilling. So here we go.
Absolutely. And Mr. Russell, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I am ready to go. I know, we have times where we have this discussion. So I'll let everybody knows, we have these production discussions where we battle between whether the legal information we're going to give is in line with what's in the news or whether what's in the news should be in line with the legal information that we give. And, most of the times we're all in agreement that the legal information comes first. And if it happens to be in the news, so be it. A lot of times we're ahead of the curve and down the block. That's what I always say when it comes down to giving out legal information and tying it to the cultural. And lo and behold, these are one of those times that we may not be ahead of the road and down the block. And this might be one of those rare times that we're letting the news infiltrate the legal discussion that we're going to have today. But let me tell you, boy, there's no way that we can let this go by. So stay tuned. I got the popcorn because it's on and popping today. It's going to be on and popping today.
Really,
Matter of fact, I'm gonna take a couple of pieces of popcorn because we're gonna get real busy like today.
Oh,
Dr. Grant, go ahead and kick it off for us.
Yeah, clearly it's going to be live today. So, top of our mind in the conversation is all of the football folks or sports analysts. It's hot news, right? That these emails that are very disparaging, oh my goodness, caused John Gruden to resign, the Raiders coach. So this is not just over like this year or last year. It's saying from 2010 to 2018 that they are still uncovering what has been shared and what has happened. So he apologized and said he didn't mean to hurt anybody and he resigned. So I'm just curious, legal experts, what say you?
I mean, look, I'm gonna start it off and we want to make sure that we talk about this in the context of some legal structure, right? And so we're going to speak about this in the context of an employee-employer or employer-employee relationship, being one that's brought in on contract. And then we'll delve into what is actually being said and what was said and who has what remarks and what it all means. Because I think it's our duty to put our best foot forward and give full exposure to this story. And that's the cultural part. And the legal side to have an understanding of what that means when you are an employee, when you are someone that is on contract. We can call it an independent contract, how the lines are gray in reference to this. But I can tell you one thing. If somebody does something over a 10-year span and someone shined a light on it, you could probably add another 10 years where it was darkness and the same thing was going on. That just happens to be my belief. And I can tell you right now, for me, just saying I didn't mean to hurt anyone. That's what you're saying. And I'll go through some of the comments that he made in reference to being confronted with this. And I can tell you None of his comments really hit the point as far as I'm concerned, saying, I apologize to every single body I offended. That still hasn't come out to a greater degree versus I'm not this type of person. One of the things he said, I was in a bad space. No shit. I think for centuries when we were slaves, the slave owners were in a bad damn space.
On language.
Excuse me, they were in a bad space, right? So tell me somebody that expressed this type of foul language, since we're talking about discriminatory, misogynistic, homophobic language, is going to isolate one incident and say they're in a bad place when we have emails that span over 10 years. And folks try to play it off, oh, it happened 10 years ago. No, it didn't happen 10 years ago. It spanned over 10 years. The latest being early 2017 and him getting this contract in 2018. And you could take the floor on employee, employer, contract, whatever you want to talk about to get this on the legal track.
Well, just to comment on one of your comments, what Gruden was trying to talk about at the time, he said he was in a bad space, were comments that were made during the NFL walkout and him being so-called or reportedly, according to him, upset that the players weren't going to, and the players weren't going to be allowed to play, and the coach is not being allowed to play, and blaming several individuals for the labor relations between the Players Association and the owners, resulting in a lockout. That being said, I just want to inform the audience, and this was information that I had to give to a potential client, I believe maybe about a year and a half ago, that free speech protections do not extend to employees in the private sector the same way they do to an employee in the government sector. I'm not saying all free speech, because if the speech involves, say, illegal conduct at the workplace, or if it's in relation to, say, an organizing campaign where those employees in that private workplace are forming the union, then that's a different thing. But the expression of racist, sexist, homophobic views do not have to be tolerated by private employers. So let's just start out with that, because some people may be thinking, oh, it's free speech. It's free speech. No, it's not. Beyond that, I would say here, within this context, it's clear that these NFL players and these coaches like John Gruden normally are employed by way of a contract. A contract is agreed upon between the employer, in this case, the Las Vegas Raiders, and John Gruden, that heel coach, for an X amount of time, for X amount of dollars. But I would imagine that contract also contains several clauses regarding conduct, morality clauses, conduct that will negatively impact the team, and so forth. Now, I'm not sure if at some point John Gruden had an argument with management and, of the or the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders as to whether or not he could be fired or not fired under that contract, because it appears that he resigned, given the withering media attention all this has gotten. But from a legal perspective, I just want to throw that out there in terms of this is the landscape that, we're operating in here within this context, in terms of, whether they could force him to resign. And I believe that, they could, even though, and the reason why I bring all this up is because at first there was a conversation about, well, when John Gruden made these remarks, he wasn't even working for the Raiders. How could they reach back 10 years and force him to resign, or cause him to resign, and as was pointed out by my colleague and by Dr. Grant, what ended up happening was, at first we were dealing with one set of emails or communications that were from about 10 years ago. But then after he tried to make it seem as if this was an isolated incident, all of a sudden, all of these other communications that even reached beyond the racist rhetoric in that first communication, or that first set of communications, broadened the scope of the discriminatory, apparently discriminatory views or expressions held by this gentleman. And so then, what was considered by some isolated became much larger.
Ed, let me tell you something. We have a saying that goes with that. All right. I don't have a little popcorn. No. The saying we all know the saying. The tangled web we weave when we try to deceive. He tried to say,
deceive.
That's right. When he said, "Oh yeah, 10 years." Oh, wait a minute, really? Like, see, that's the first for all those who are out there. When you are a lawyer and you are conducting cross-examination, you set the groundwork for someone to go in one direction, and you know that they're going to go in that direction because they think that you're not smart enough to know that something exists that says contra to the direction that they're going. So, little cross-examination trick. Oh, yeah, so the light is red, right, when you drove your car? Oh, yeah, it was red, right? And you were driving at an excessive rate? No, I wasn't. Matter of fact, you were under the speed limit. And all that sounds great. And then the lawyer brings out the picture that shows that the light was not green, it was red. And he brings out the speedometer that shows that the person was driving over the speed limit. So he tried to do the same thing. That's my understanding from reading everything that I've read, every single article I've read. New York Times, kudos for you for doing a great job. Where's that camera? Kudos right there, right? Or over here. There you go, like that, right? He tried to do the same thing. And then, the reporters and everybody else went in their back pocket and was like, wait a minute. Isn't this a picture of you? I mean, they did one of those things. Well, wait a minute. Let's look at the time span. And now we get all the way up to 2017. Let me add to what you've also said, Ed, that usually when we talk about employer-employee relationships, we all know as an employee, you're an employee at will in most states. That means you could be terminated with or without cause. What does that mean? With cause, you come in late. You leave early. You don't finish your work. All right, see you later. Gotta go. Without cause, I don't say anything to you, and I just come in that day and say, Dr. Grant, it's been great. Talk to you later. We're moving in a different direction. If I have to say that much, we're moving in a different direction. And you are poof, gone as an employee. This fiction that employers need to give you a reason, need to spell out, you need to do several things wrong, doesn't really exist. Because America is a capitalistic country, and most of the capital has come from corporations. So they get the benefit of the doubt, and they get a chance to lay down the pretext, a business pretext as to why you're terminated. That's why at will, with or without cause. Now, this young man right here, or this man right here, or whatever you want to call him right about now, this guy doesn't have a necessary employer-employee relationship per se because he's under contract, as Ed has articulated. And what Ed talked about, that there's definitely a clause in there, and it's called conduct that is detrimental to the team. Every player has it, and I would assume every assistant coach has it. Every assistant has it, and every coach has it. Anybody that's on that chain that has a contract with that team has that detrimental to conduct language in it, which means you do something that's detrimental to our product, bye-bye. Now, whether it is retroactive or prospective, that's to be determined. I'd love to see his contract. But if it's detrimental to the team, you got to go. Now, if I'm the Las Vegas Raiders, I don't really have to put your thumb down on you. I really don't have to do anything. We 15 minutes into the show. We got a lot of things to talk about as to why, if I'm him, I would have just clicked my heels, grabbed my bag, and just got out of there, right? And one of the biggest things the biggest things that he can't run away from is his homophobic comments, right? Look, when I've read all these articles from the New York Times, and maybe because I'm jaded and help me along this road, the racism comment is kind of like almost like people could tolerate that. You call DeMaurice Smith, who's the executive director for the NFL Players Association, you call him what? Dumbaris, right? His name is DeMaurice. You call him Dumbaris Smith, has lips the size of a Michelin tire. Now, we all know, anybody of color, one of the fanfares of racist comment is big nose, big lips. We know that.
And he tried to like fudge it and say, no, I usually refer to anyone who lies as having rubber lips, and that's what I really meant.
So, you know what I'm saying? Right? So the insensitivity that he compounded by saying whatever Ed just said, like it can't even register in between my ears. As we are a sensitive show as to the bologna sandwiches he was coming out of his mouth, right? You fill in the BS coming out of his mouth is ridiculous. But yes, I live in a world where I know a racist comment like that can get swept under the rug, as he tried to do.
Especially by some of our own, right?
Right, so, and we'll get to shit. Amen, 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 amen. This is in the house.
Here we go.
Push it up, push it up, boy. And we'll get to that. And like I said, I'm used to racism comments getting pushed to the side, because America's so used to that. We so used to picking up our arms and protests, and we hear it all the time. But now, when you start putting misogynistic and homophobic language in there, and here's I'm gonna use this in a negative way, the way that you don't really hear this. The cream has risen to the top. Ha ha ha. The cream has risen to the top because he's floating on top right now. You can see him. He's
there
open.
are other things that float, by the
That's
way.
right. That's right.
That ain't cream.
And you can see him. You can see him right away, right? He has to go in and see. I love when some of me rub off on him because he does the same. That's it. That's all. That's it. And so, like I said, Las Vegas, they don't even have to put the thumb down. This ex-coach, has to walk into a room, like I said, where he badmouthed Fisher, coach of the Rams, and the NFL for him drafting the first gay NFL player to draft him.
I thought that he was speaking ill of Goodell for supposedly forcing Fisher to have to recruit.
Here it is.
Those. Yeah.
Equal opportunity for everyone. So you mad because
everybody getting it?
Right. And the thing is that Michael Sams, he was at the top of his game. He won all type of accolades as a defensive end. I mean, like, this wasn't a guy that was just like, you're going to give him a tryout. He wasn't going to coach his son. I mean, he won all type of awards when he was in college. Mm-hmm. And so he's going to say, Goodell, blah, 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 forcing this coach to draft queers. Now, here's the thing where I want to get back real quick to Las Vegas not even having to put pressure on him. The first openly gay NFL player, Carl Nassib, actually plays for the Raiders. How you walking in that locker room? What you gonna say? What you gonna say? And Ed, you alluded to how some of our own is like giving them a pass. And let me just touch on how surface that is. Surface comments sound like this. He was good to me. I never saw that. Well, and let me not say this. Well, shimmer. If he got 10 dead bodies in his house, yeah, he wasn't a murderer to you, but guess what? He murdered people. Like, I don't even understand that. How, I mean, kudos to Keyshawn Johnson. You know what I mean? Who said, like, yo, Keyshawn, like, yo, wait a minute. Something was like, I ain't really, this whole thing about he was good to me. I never saw that. Well, shimmer. If he got 10 dead bodies in his house, yeah, he wasn't a murderer to you, but guess what? He murdered people. Like, I don't even understand that. How, I mean, kudos to Keyshawn Johnson. You know what I mean? Who said, like, yo, Keyshawn, like, wait a minute. Something was like, I ain't really, this whole thing about he was good to me. and I know Dungy is a Christian man. Mike Tariki,
Tarico.
I don't know him personally. Um, Brown, who's a wide receiver. I'm sure there are a lot of people that had a lot of positive interactions with this man.
And I actually hope that this serves as a lesson.
But a body's a body, though.
Yeah, I mean, I hope this serves as a lesson for our more. Let me leave it right now at conservative brothers and sisters who seem to, for some reason, feel it necessary to run to the defense of individuals who are accused of some racist conduct and coming out and saying, well, he was a good man with me, and I never heard such things, especially within this context where the story was still unfolding. They didn't know about these other emails, but they were ready to jump and defend this man. And now they got egg on their face because now Mike Tirico and Tony Jundy is now using the Bible to say, oh, we're supposed to forgive and all of this business. And it's like, come on, Tony, what are you doing? What are you doing, Tony? Just stop. Let it die. I think he should just not comment anymore. He should stay quiet and admit he made a mistake and leave it at that. Because I think unfortunately a lot of this behavior, what prompts this behavior is certain level of selfishness.
Yes,
they profited from this relationship with John Gruden. And what I mean by those in the audience who aren't familiar, Mike Tirico and Tony Dungy were on the same sports show as John Gruden. Together. Yeah, they were in the booth together. They would do the games together. Extremely lucrative gig. Former players would kill to be on these like shows where out of the hundreds and thousands of players, or coaches rather, they get to be in that booth and report on these games and talk it, and the level of fame that they get and the money they make is huge, right? So of course, I guess they feel the need as soon as one of their own gets called to the carpet on something that they have to just run. I mean, the problem I got is, and I guess I would have to flip back on the analyst. I don't think that when the brother from San Francisco was
Colin Kaepernick
was standing up against police brutality, that these individuals were jumping and jumping hurdles to his defense.
Hold on. Hey, let me have a little more popcorn on that one.
Yeah. And so I don't remember these individuals being so vociferous in their defense of what I can rightly say one of their own. You know what I mean? Like, here you got one of your own fighting the system, getting penalized for it, getting blackballed by the entire NFL. No owners were hiring the brother, even though he was good. I had to even pull out stats for one of my Negro friends to say, hey, listen, don't believe the hype. This brother was a good player. He should have been playing the game. The only reason he's not playing the game is because, most of these owners, are conservative and racist for sure.
Ed, let me just stop you right there. Hold your thought. Let me add to. I just want to read one line, and I want to add to what you're saying. And that is an article from the New York Times. In numerous emails during a 7-year period ending in early 2018, that wasn't too long ago, Gruden criticized Goodell and the league for trying to reduce concussions. I mean, God forbid you want to reduce the health and human beings in the future. But here's something to your point, and then I want you to continue. And said that Eric Reed, brother of Cap Alpha Psi, like Colin Kaepernick, a brother of Cap Alpha Psi, who didn't get all the publicity in taking a knee, but knelt with Colin Kaepernick on the same team and said, I got your back. Kudos to the frat for doing that. And said that Eric Reed, a player who had demonstrated during the playing of the national anthem, should be fired in several instances. See, I'm used to stuff like that. I'm used to the Morris Smith big lips. I'm used to stuff like that, right? And so these two brothers went on to win a lawsuit, right? They settled the lawsuit for collusion for NFL teams precluding them from going back to play football. And you're going to tell me that this man was good to me, and so that makes everything all right? Like, you got to be kidding me. And Gruden's behavior was not limited to 2011. Gruden exchanged emails with Bruce Allen, who was then the president of the Washington football team, now the Washington football team, and they were under fire for harassment, misconduct, sexual misconduct, and the racist name of saying, the Washington Redskins, right? They were under fire because they used the word Redskins. And other men, this is where the critical thinking come in. I want to know who's the other men. Who's the other men? Who are the other men?
The man next to the man, next to the man, next to the man.
Next to the man. How many? Was it someone that owns the Texans? Because we know what Deshaun Watson is going through over there, right? And for those who don't know, we'll bring it up before the end of the show. Other men, and included photos of women wearing only bikini bottoms, including one photo of two Washington team cheerleaders. Now, remember, all this came out when they stumbled on collecting emails based upon a workplace lawsuit, harassment, sexual misconduct lawsuit with the then Washington Redskins. And here go a little bit, here go a little bit to add to it. Let me just read this. During his, all right, so let me just read this one part, right? It says, Gruden also criticized President Barack Obama during his re-election in 2012, as well as then the Vice President Joseph Biden, who Gruden called a nervous, clueless P, and it ends with a Y.
Wow.
And use similar words to describe Goodell, DeMaurice Smith, the executive director of the NFL Players Association. And Dr. Grant, before you go on, let me just say one other thing. And we talked about those who on the surface and they got egg in their face, right? So surface. We talk about a cardiac arrest and looking at things, police stops from a black and white perspective. So surface, right? Here's something that is not surface. This is what Brother Smith said, the executive director for the NFL Players Association, who was called Dumbros and lips the size of a Michelin tire. He said this, which is so incredible and thoughtful, and I have to bring it up. Smith said in his statement that Gruden's comments are symptomatic of the challenges that Black Americans face. People are sometimes saying things behind your back that are racist, just like you see people talk and write about you using thinly coded racist language, Smith said, who took over the union's executive directorship in 2009. Racism like this comes from the fact that I am at the same table as they are, and they don't think someone who looks like me belongs there. And so when you say, yes, everybody. Where's the bomb? Can we drop the bomb on that? Because that's the bomb. That's the bomb.
I need
right?
a vote.
And so, Ed, when you say, we have the right to freedom of speech, not that you're saying in this context, you're saying you made the example of freedom of speech. Sometimes speech ain't so free. It just ain't. It just ain't, isn't, not, you name it. Freedom of speech is not free because it's costing this man his whole career.
Right. And the fact that they went back on email. So even, as we continue the conversation, and then there's some other news that we'll get to, this came up to haunt him. And, it brings me into the conversations that I have with young people about the internet. Nothing can be erased forever. Once it's out, it's out. So whether it's an email, whether it's a post, whether it's a video, like this stuff lives on. And look at what's haunting him from 2010 all the way until now. So that's the other where the legal meets the cultural. Watch what you put out. If you can't own what you say, if you're not proud of how you're being portrayed, then don't put it out. Don't even send a text message. Don't send an email. Just try to live in a way where nothing can come back to haunt you, because this clearly is an example of what can be researched and what they can get.
Well, I agree with you, Dr. Grant. And, when you're young, those things happen. But we're not talking about, having a brew or, using the N word or doing something like crazy, like with your friends and, you got short shorts on. We're talking about an old man who should know better. And in 2017, he shared a group sexist meme of a female referee, to which Gruden replied, nice job, Roger, talking about Roger Goodell. And then this is what is this is sadistic. This is not just, I made a mistake and they come back to haunt you. That same year, 2017, Gruden was sent a link to an article about NFL players calling on Goodell to support their efforts promoting racial equality and criminal justice reform. Gruden had advice for Goodell. This is advice to the commissioner based upon social justice, right? And that's why the NFL is getting involved and they're looking to penalize him for long term. This is the advice he's given the commissioner about social justice, racial equality, criminal justice reform. He needs to hide in the concussion protocol tent. Can you explain what that means, Ed? The concussion protocol tent? When you get injured, you go into that room and they put the blue thing over you, and maybe you won't. The blue tent, we may not see you for the rest of the day because something's wrong with your mental.
In other words, he needs to have his head examined.
Say it again, brother. Drop a bomb.
Wow.
Drop a bomb, baby.
No, and that's the problem here. The problem here is that these athletes, most of them who are men of color, invariably are supposed to just shut up and play, no matter what damage it causes them, no matter whether their rights are respected as human beings off the field. You are just supposed to play, shut up and play. He's even calling into question racist stereotypes regarding intelligence. It just completely runs the gambit.
That too, intelligence. What?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that, but what's unfortunate is that he's been caught, but there are many others who have successfully been able to hide their views, because he's caught out there because he was putting it in written communications and emails. I don't know if later on you're going to have some videos of him speaking or communicating in this way are going to come out, but certainly, he's been caught out there, but I'm sure there are many others underneath the surface here that are operating, and I would imagine some of them are owners. And this reminds me years ago of the owner, I believe it was of the Clippers.
Oh yes, my friend.
It was the Clippers, right?
Yeah,
he was having an affair with this young woman, and she basically exposed him and his racist views.
He was like, "Don't bring magic to the table. Don't bring magic to my house. I don't care if it's magic or not. Don't bring them."
Yeah, and that forced the NBA, the National Basketball Association's owner elite, to say, "Hey, man, you need to go ahead and sell that team."
And you didn't see Doc Rivers or anybody running around saying he was a great dude. Doc Rivers stood down because he had a whole team of brothers that he had to coach. And what was he going to say? He stood down.
And listen, Keyshawn Johnson, he's come out and said, "Listen, I always thought this guy was a phony and a fake. Never liked him." And just for the audience, for some of you that aren't avid football watchers, in case you're thinking, "Oh, but he was successful." This guy won a Super Bowl, which Keyshawn bought up. He won a Super Bowl with a team that he had inherited from a black coach, Tony Dungy.
That's right.
Tony Dungy, over the years, had built this really good team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The team had made the playoffs, I believe, several years prior to that. The bowl itself, right? The championship.
The year before, they made it to the conference championship.
Exactly. So this was a team that was already solid, right? Solid offense and defense.
As a right.
And Tony Dungy got fired, right? They hired John Gruden, and John Gruden takes that team and they win it all, right? And the good thing was that I think a year or two later, Tony Dungy becomes coach of the Colts and the Indianapolis Colts, and they win a Super Bowl with, the famous Peyton Manning.
And the first all-black coach Super Bowl team against
Yes.
Lovie Smith for the
Yeah,
Bengals.
yeah,
That's
because
right.
both coaches on either side of that
That's right.
championship game
That's
were
right.
black, which was
That's right.
historic. It was just absolutely historic. It
That's right.
guaranteed that we would have, our first black coach winning it all, winning the Super Bowl. So, just for the folks, so there's a bigger context here in all of this. It's huge. This is huge.
So before we continue on, Jason was asking if he retracted his statements or did he own them. So I guess owning them is, I'm so sorry for anyone that I've hurt.
No, he owned them. And here's the Jason point. This is what he said. I was in a bad frame of mind at that time in 2011. I called Roger Goodell expletive in one of these emails, the Raiders coach. So yeah, he owned it.
I don't call that ownership.
If you're gonna own it all the way, bruh. Own it from sun up to sundown. Own it from how you think of when you think about gays when you call them queers and call people faggot. Own it what you think about African Americans when you refer to big lips. Own it when you're talking about standing up for social justice and criminal justice reform. Own the whole thing. Don't own a little piecemeal of it. You're gonna own a little portion of it. As they say, you touch, you break, you buy. You can't. This is it. You want the steak, you got to eat the vegetables too.
Listen, he was owning when the lights weren't on. As soon as the lights turned on, he ran away from her. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what happened here. What he did was, first of all, as I stated earlier, when it came to the Smith remarks and the lips, he said, "Oh no, I just meant that he had rubber lips and he's a liar." And then with this thing about I was in a bad place. At that time, he wasn't even coaching for the NFL. I believe he was actually coaching a high school team.
So what bad place?
What bad place? Well, they weren't allowing us to play, the coaches and the players and this. Come on, all of this was. And he was, and it was only at the end when he realized that all of these emails were coming out that he said, "You know what? I don't have a choice now," because I'm sure he found some media expert to. Hey, what do I say about this? How do I get myself out of this?
He needed to find that media expert a long time ago because when he's confronted with the things that he says about DeMaurice Smith, he's going to say, "I'm ashamed. I insulted D. Smith," and added, "I never had. I don't have a racist thought in my body." Something substance. And what he says, and then you know what? You gotta love the media. You gotta love, for all the credit I give the reporters for breaking this story, and I guess this is true. I love it when they say stuff like this. Reactions to Gruden's email comments have been wide-ranging, both within the Raiders locker room and around the league. According to sources, some people believe there should be repercussions for Gruden. No joke, right? While others believe he should be forgiven. I don't know how many of the others, but let's get the numbers. And then this is what kills me. Including one black player who gave him a hug and asked how he could help him.
Why did they even put that in the story?
Because you got to put in, I have friends that are black. You just got to put that in there. I mean, like, if that's not the epitome of ridiculousness, I don't know what is.
Well, that brother needs Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro book. Yeah. That's what he needs. It's clear that he has been affected, that he walks out the back door even when he's told not to. He automatically, robotically behaves as he has been.
But he said
indoctrinated.
He hugged him. He said, he gave him a hug.
Well, that's what he's supposed to do. That was the programming that they did.
He was like, my man. He was like, my man. This reminds me of,
We sick, boss.
This is Django. This is Django 2.20. Samuel L. Jackson 2.20. He's like,
we not feeling good, boss.
That's right. We not feeling good, boss. This is incredible, man. This is totally incredible. And I know we spend a lot of time talking about the culture on this one, but it's quite obvious that you're an employee. Freedom of speech ain't so free,
It's
and
not
you
free.
can't say what you want when you want unless you're ready for the repercussions.
And not in this age, right? There's a lot going on with communication, the cancel culture, what can be said, can't be said. I mean, we won't even get into the Dave Chappelle
Oh,
shit.
my God. My God. You know what, Dr. Grant, right there. You know what? I swear to you, I put right here, right? My man was taken from the Ring of Honor, right? Gruden was taken down from the Ring of Honor in Tampa Bay. And then I said, right here, I wrote it down. I swear to you, I want the whole world to see. I wrote it down right here. I said, can't wait till Dave Chappelle gets this. When he gets this material, Dave Chappelle is one of the smartest comedians out there. When he gets hold of this, you want to talk about a Netflix special? He going to do a Netflix special right on this. He going to talk about what he's been through and what they try to do to him because of him bringing comedy, which is always uncomfortable, but it's fact and his life to the forefront. That's what you do to this clown boy who's showing his racist hand all day, every day. And as you know, I'll go back to one thing that DeMaurice Smith said. He said one of Gruden's emails included a racist comment about Smith. On Monday, before Gruden resigned, Smith tweeted, and this is what I mean by critical thinking and like holding feet to the fire, that the email and some of the reactions, I like that. That's that coded shot at you. I'm throwing a shot at you. I ain't gonna say who. Some of the reactions to it confirms that the fight against racism, racist tropes, and intolerance is not over. This is not about an email, which is true. This is not about an email as much as it is about the pervasive belief by some people that people who look like me can be treated as less. That's what it really is. And before we go into, and Dr. Grant, I want to place this in everybody's ears because I know we're going to move on to the next subject matter. This is just part and parcel of the racism that exists in the NFL and in our country. And it supports, this is my theory. I don't know if anybody else adopts it, but this is my theory. This supports the power structure, slave mentality, slave reaction, whipping of the slave that I see when it comes down to Deshaun Watson in reference to him trying to get from underneath his contract and not play with the Titans and want to play for another team. And it wasn't until he voiced his opinion that I do not want to play for the Houston.
You mean the Texans, right? The Texans,
right? The Houston Texans. Excuse me, I said Titans. Excuse me, Texans. I do not want to play for the Texans because one, they haven't moved forward in the world of social justice. Two, I'm a franchise quarterback, and I'm not saying this is the priority order, but two, I'm a franchise quarterback, and like my white counterparts who are franchise quarterbacks, you consult the franchise quarterback when you make moves as far as getting a GM, getting a coach, and trading people. Three, you traded all my peoples away. Like I have nobody to play with here, and I know that my career is going to be shortened. As soon as I say I want out, and I was smart enough to put in my contract that I can choose what team I go to, you just can't control it for me. I was smart enough to put that. Then all of a sudden, all these allegations, which I'm not drawing conclusions as to whether they're true or false. All I'm saying is that now, once he raised his head of saying, I want to get out of Dodge, all of a sudden, all these allegations start coming up and rising to the top about him and misconduct. And they existed before he asked to leave. So that means, I heard this before, criminal justice system is not really fair. And those who have power and who have money get the fairest treatment. Those who have power and have money have the ability to suppress certain things as long as you do what they say. And as soon as you decide not to do what they say, they will unleash and let go. And I can't help to see that or notice that he is black. Some folks are white. White folks got the power. They unleash in this scenario. Once again, this is my opinion. They unleash in this scenario. And now they make it a situation where, all right, you can go, but now we damage you so much. We tarnish your reputation so much that go. It's almost like, in my personal opinion, Barack becoming president. The world was so damaged and such in a place that no one can even fathom that someone of color can come in and resurrect it. And they were more than happy to say, here, take this show, this Shiznik show, and let me see what you can do. So that we never have to elect a black president again, because look, he failed. And look, not really pointing out what we left him, but look, he failed. And when he turned that around, he made a tails ahead, the world was spinning. And Watson's going to turn this around, do the same thing.
I think for the audience, I think, within the sports contest, a documentary that's good to watch in terms of film is the Malice at the Palace documentary.
Oh, yes, that's beautiful. Yes.
Because that is a classic example of how these players are regarded. In that case, it was NBA players that got into a fight with some fans in the stands, and how the media got it completely wrong years ago, and now a lot of the facts are now coming to light as to the whole incident and
who
what really
and when
took place. And there's a lot of racial implications there. And so I would welcome folks to watch it. Malice at the Palace. Please take a look. It involved Ron Artest, Steven Jackson,
Jermaine O'Neal,
and Jermaine O'Neal, all members of the players for the Indiana Pacers.
And you said one thing about how the media got it all wrong. My jaded self says, I don't know if they got it all wrong. Whether getting it all wrong was by happenstance or intentional. A lot of things happen in this world that's intentional, and we'll deal with the consequences later, not by happenstance. And when you look at Deshaun Watson and you look at what happened to him, that's not by happenstance, that's intentional. The only thing that's by happenstance is that, or coincidence, is that Ugly rose to the top in reference to Gruden when they weren't even focusing on him, when they were focused on something else.
Indeed.
And it came out. I know this is not the end of this story, but the lesson to learn: watch what you put out there, own your words, because you never know when they can come back. And all of what we've been talking about on the show, the heightened acknowledgement of just all of the racist infrastructure, what the structural race, it's everything that we experience in this country still has to be healed. And, we did celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, for those who did, this past Monday, that the president actually signed a declaration for it, and just acknowledging the pain that Native Indigenous from this land are still suffering in 2021. It's a part of a lot of the ills that have not been totally resolved. I don't know when they will be, but that's why we have to keep our voices up and alive and get engaged and involved, so that you really know what's going on in the world, and you're not just kind of coasting through and thinking that people didn't pay a price for us to even be here and to even have a conversation where we can speak legally, right? Where the legal meets the culture, where we can have two men of color as legal experts, right? Where we can use our voices and this platform as a way to inform and educate. So before we close out, we did want to touch on the fact that we've been following what's happening with COVID, right? And really looking at what's happening. And, we'll probably pick back up on this because this is hot and it's not going anywhere right now. But the judge issues an injunction against New York's vaccine mandate. What say you, legal experts?
Well, just for the audience here, what we're talking about here is a federal judge in Utica, and this is a confusing part of it. A federal judge in Utica issued a injunction against the enforcement of the vaccine mandate concerning healthcare workers as to religious exemptions. Because if you recall, as we discussed, I believe in the last show or the show before, the unique feature about the vaccine mandate for the healthcare workers is that Governor Hochul implemented a ban on religious exemptions, meaning that if you're a healthcare worker and say you wanted to apply for a religious exemption to the mandate, you just simply could not. And that was like an emergency rule that was placed in the New York State Rules and Regulations. I believe it's like a 2.16 or something like that, that doesn't even allow these employers, these, public employers, to consider a religious exemption. And the judge said that, this is unconstitutional, that, based on the Constitution and, the freedom to exercise your religion, you should be allowed to, at the very least, apply for an exemption and have the employer consider it. And it was 17 health professionals that sued the state of New York. All of them, to my understanding, are doctors. So I remember when we talked about low level workers versus these higher level workers,
and the cost of litigation.
Because this litigation is actually being handled by the Thomas More Society, which is, Thomas More was a famous Catholic jurist, old England, whatever, so it's an organization handling this lawsuit on behalf of these Christian medical professionals who are claiming that their religion doesn't allow them to take this vaccine because it apparently contains fetal cell lines derived from procured abortions in testing, development, or production. So you see kind of this tie between,
abortion rights and
anti-abortion
and
religion, Christian in this case. And so, they filed this official capacity 1983 action, so now there's an injunction. The confusing part of this decision, though, is that according to the article, this judge had issued a TRO, a temporary restraining order, back on September 14th, but that wasn't really reported. It was, the reports were that the federal lawsuit was, by, those trying to, stop the mandate was unsuccessful here in, I believe, the Southern District, I believe. But there were no reports about, this district judge up north in Utica issuing this TRO. So, I'm not sure.
Add to the fact of it's a power play, right? I mean, when you look at hierarchy of districts, right, and you look at what the media exposed, we all know that Southern District, which covers Manhattan and the Bronx, that's where all the media focuses on. And then the Eastern District, which is Queens, Long Island, Brooklyn, that's the second. Now you're talking Northern District. It's like saying that you're a fan of New York football teams, and the only team left is the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, of course you're a fan of the
playing
Buffalo
quite
Bills.
Well, by
They're
the way.
winning right now. They're winning right now, of course. But nobody's really standing up for them because they think of the two New York teams, the Jets and the Giants. So it's the same thing here. I mean, it is not, so unfamiliar that someone would not, that the media would not focus on the Northern District in reference to that type of decision. But it's important, though.
But just to answer the audience members' question, it appears that this mandate, with respect to the religious exemption, is on hold. So for now, they are barred from in any way disciplining or affecting the employment of any employee health worker who seeks a religious exemption. Okay.
And the water just get more and more muddy and more gray because, look, I know I'm born again, but who's going to step up and raise their hand now all of a sudden that now, they found Christianity and they're running again? Because remember, like you said, this is brought by Christians, right? right? And so it's really hard to delve into what practice, and they tie it to abortion, right? So what practice do you, the individual, take part in that says that this is against your religion, right?
And whether it's sincerely held, and with
right,
Kate,
and
and you know,
quasi Christians too,
and you know, and I kind of skimmed through the decision, and I heard, I mean, not I heard, I read that there was some mention of the rubella vaccine, for instance, and that also deriving from these fetal cell lines. So the question is, have any of these individuals taken the rubella vaccine? And if they have, why didn't it come up then?
More to come.
And these are, and apparently the other little thing is, these are all MDs who are fulfilling their residency requirements on the younger side in the profession. Interesting.
Because people are now woke. The alarm clock went off. Bing, they hit it one time. They didn't go to snooze. See, past generations, the alarm clock went off and they went to snooze. This generation, that alarm clock go off and they're waking up. And the question they ask is not, oh, is it time to wake up? The question they ask is, why do I have to get up? Because they're so privileged. They're just so privileged.
That's another show. So this is to be continued, because now, because of the injunction, nothing can move forward. So what happens in flux? Like, this is
Oh no! I mean, don't get me wrong. It continues to move forward, except for those who you know, are intending to, or have applied, or have communicated to the employer religious exemption, and were prevented from having that considered. So,
and I know people who plot and plan.
Oh yeah,
the phone calls I receive sometimes that, you know, we're gonna put this in place because I really don't look. I'm not the only lawyer. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, we both know, Royce, that there are people who they got scared for that job and went ahead and got it anyway.
Right, and there's some people that got scared and they tied like you don't believe, boy. They out their pocket. They in the place to be all day long.
And the you know, and apparently, you know, the largest organizations in these congregations have said no. Getting the vaccine is not against our religion. So the question, so now it's going to break down, I guess, to sex and what sect do you belong to, and oh man, this is going to be interesting, and I find this all fascinating, because many years ago you had someone named Muhammad Ali who decided not to go to war based on his religious beliefs.
That's right.
Was heavily ridiculed, was willing to go to jail, and finally had it semi-recognized. Because when you look at the Supreme Court's decision, even on that, you come to find out that it was very narrowly tailored. It was a very narrow decision, so that it couldn't be widely applied. So just interesting, fascinating.
And he lost his belt, and lost his title, and everything else.
Well, he lost more than that, because he was prevented from boxing in his best years. He was at his youngest, his strongest, his fastest during that time. And God knows what we would have called.
And let me tell you, that sounds very eerie, because that sounds like a Deshaun Watson situation. Although there's some shenanigans
trying to rob you of your prime years, rob you of
your best years.
It'll be your best years, exactly. Just like they did. Anyway, I could go on.
Yeah, I mean, clearly this does trigger a lot more conversation, but we have to wait till the next episode of Speaking Legally, where the legal meets the cultural. This has been interesting today, and there's so many layers to this, you know, besides the obvious of the racist and the misogynist and the homophobic, all those comments, but really thinking about the power of words and the power of the written word and how that can come back legally, because they have to subpoena these emails from somewhere. They're going through records. They're getting it from somewhere. It didn't just appear, because this stuff stays. Like, anybody in IT and tech knows that this will stay. So learn that lesson. If you don't learn anything else from what's going on, because he has to take care of answering for himself, but you protect yourself as you move about in the things that you do. Because there's a whole lot. Exactly, Jason. There's levels to this, son. Absolutely. So, any final words from our legal experts before we close out today's show?
I'm just going to take the level that Brother Smith of the NFL Players Association has taken. We should not be appalled so much by the email as opposed to the context of the email and how this is systemic. It is going on. And as they say, they smile on your face all the time. I want to take your place, those backstabbers. And if we can eracism, as it says up here, if we can eracism, maybe we can get somewhere. But the smile in your face, I'll leave it at that.
That part.
Be considerate. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. Plain
There
and
it is.
simple.
See you next week, family.